today. Okay, there's nothing happy about this Monday, but we move. I had a really slow morning, so now it's in the afternoon. It's 3 p.m. I don't like this kind of tops. It's a bareback bodysuit. Okay, you can't see all the way to the back parts. I don't like it. I feel like I'm naked. I don't have a choice. So I'm in my mom's room vlogging. Or is it recording a video as usual? You'll have to bear with the noise. Watch her, Miles. Watch her. Yeah. Hopefully. Anyway, we can't sort that out. Yeah, so how you guys doing? Happy Monday. Today is on Monday. I think I said that already. But anyway. I decided to put up a video today because the last video I put up was, I think, on... Was it on Wednesday? Or Thursday? I am not so sure. Any day between Thursday and Friday or Wednesday, I'm not so sure. But anyway, I hope you guys are great. I'm holding up personally. I hope you guys are doing the same. So today I've just been in the house. By the way, I didn't mention something. It's already a week past. I should have mentioned it earlier, like in my previous video, but I didn't mention it. I think the previous video was me doing a nighttime routine, but the one before that one was me doing a haul of the bags I got. God, I'm in love with bags. I can't wait to go back and stock for more bags. So what was I saying? I think I had ADHD. I keep forgetting stuff. I lose my trail of thoughts and it keeps wandering off. I was saying, oh yeah, I remember. So I actually, like a week ago on Saturday, like last Saturday, other than this, that is achana na yenye imepita, the other one, I received flowers for the first time ever. Like that was a very good gesture to me. I won't tell you who they were from, of course, but you just know I received flowers. All my life I've never received flowers. That was the first time. And I was so happy. I was so excited. Like it made me feel so special. I actually remembered to mention it today because today is when I'm throwing them away. I don't have a better way of preserving them, so they died. Of course, they were still in their packaging, by the way. I hadn't removed them from that packaging, but it's because we don't even have a vase, or is it vase, to like put them in. And then I understand flowers do have like their own food which you put in water, bleach. We don't have all of that, so I didn't have a better way of preserving them, and that's why they died. Maybe they could have stayed a little bit longer, but they're dead. So I've thrown them out like a few minutes ago, and I wanted to show them to you, but they look so bad. They look so bad, so I just did away with them. Anyway, so in today's video I wanted to do like a story time. I showered in the morning. I wanted to do 2 videos today, but unfortunately I don't see myself doing 2 videos. I only think I'm going to do this one video. Hopefully it won't be long enough because I want to post it today, because editing a long video takes a lot of time and uploading it is another hassle. Okay, why I moved back home, because I've never done that story time. I only mention in passing, like when I'm talking in a vlog and I mention that I live with my mom, and I'll talk about it in another video. I've never actually done that other video. So now this is me doing that other video. I think I can see you better without the glasses, by the way, because there's so much reflection coming from the window. I can see so much. So I think I'll prefer filming without me having the glasses on. Yeah. So you have to bear with me. Anyway, so this is the thing. In case you're new to my channel, by the way, I've lived alone for a very long time. I moved out of home in 2016 September, and I moved back home last year, which is 2022, on the 30th of June. So those are how many years? 2016, 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. It could have been my 8th year or something. Close to 7 years of me living alone. So close to 8 years actually. Yeah. Or 7. I don't know. But thereabout. So let me just give you a quick story of how everything happened. I don't want to go too much into detail because this guy is making a lot of noise. Guy Miles. Umetupa hiyo kitu? Nikuchape? Unacheka nini? He has just thrown my case, glasses. Anyway, so I completed high school in 2015 November. and I was home throughout the whole year. I never did computer classes or what people do when they're outside school. Me, I was just more or less at home until my letter to join campus, which was on May 6th of 2016, came in, and that is when I actually joined campus. So for the first semester, I was living in the hostels until after the first semester was over. I was so done with like living in the hostels because the hygiene levels were trash. I don't know, for some reason, in a place where there are so many girls or ladies or women, hygiene levels will obviously be a problem, especially if it's a shared bathroom or a shared toilet. There has to be an issue because not all people have like high levels of hygiene. So you get people coming from different backgrounds. So anyway, so I moved out of the hostels in my first year, second semester. Okay, so that is when I moved back. When I moved out of, so I looked for a house. Apparently, I had a roommate who wanted to join me, and luckily we had been in the same high school and the same class, so it was easier for me to live with her because it's someone I knew. In the hostels where I was living before, I had 3 other mates who we were to move out with, but I'll tell you the story. So yeah, actually we moved out with them, but one remained in the hostels because their parents did not allow them to live outside the hostel for some reason. You know, parents are just parents. So me and my other 2 friends, because we in our hostel we were only 4, me and my other 2 friends, we moved out together. So the 4th person, who was now my classmate, came in later. Okay, she was now joining school for the first time. She came, I went in during the May intake. She came in she came during the September intake. Aki English nanilemea. Alikuja intake ya September. So I moved. Now when we were looking for a house, we were now the 4 of us. So me, my 2 roommates who I had from the previous hostel, and now my classmates. Okay, so she was Muslim, and okay, that's not even applicable in this story, but just to mention. Yeah, so I really love Muslims. But I have a couple of Muslim friends. I love Muslims. If you're a Muslim, you can DM me or you can be friends. Yeah, so we got a house in a place called Mihoko. We lived there, the 4 of us. So we got a double room. Me and my classmates from primary now, the Muslim lady, we used to live in the same room. And then the other 2, the roommates I had from the hostel, they were living in the other room. So we all occupied both rooms. So it was 2-2. Okay. Sasa, we lived together for a while, and then eventually, fast forward, we fell off with that other group that I lived with in the hostel. The 2 other ladies that I lived with in the hostel, we fell off. So they moved out, and I remained with my classmate. So we decided, since we are now the 2 of us, she can move into the other room. So each one of us can have their own room finally. And that is what we did. So eventually, again, fast forward, it got to a point where she was unable to like sustain herself because she was the one supporting herself, like in terms of school fees, rent, nini. So it got really difficult for her. So she had to, look for a cheaper option than the one we were living in. So eventually I was left alone, and I had to move to a single room, which could only accommodate me because I could not also be able to pay rent for 2 rooms. That's a double room, and I'm living alone. Okay, I didn't have the capability at the time. My parents were the ones supporting me, but still it was a lot for them. Like, I'm living alone. There's no point in me paying 5,000, because we were paying 5,000 for that double room at the time. So I looked for a single room. The same apartment. They built other houses. Wali pandisha. So I moved to the houses on the 4th floor, and the single house was 3,200. Yeah, so that was manageable. Fast forward again, I was still in campus all this while all of this was happening. So finally I was through with school, and then I was now in the house. No job. The next thing after school automatically is you're supposed to look for a job, which of course was not possible to get. I wrote so many applications. By the way, I remember I wrote so many applications. All this time I was just surviving because I didn't have a job. And my parents were really asking me to move back home at that time, and I was like, no, I can't just finish school and then move back home to be a burden again. let me look for a job, let me find something to do. And since there were no jobs, I decided, you know what, I love thrifting. Like, I really love thrifting. So I sorted out my clothes, and the ones which I had never worn, like there are ones, okay, I don't know if it only happens to me, but I'm sure it happens to majority of people. Sometimes you buy a lot of clothes, and then along the way there's some you'll never wear. Okay, so that's what I did. With the ones I never wore, I actually set them aside for selling. So I will wake up every day around, ikifika around 10 a.m. I'd go to the hostels. Now I'm already a graduate. I've already finished. Okay, not a graduate. We had not graduated yet. We had just finished school. So we were awaiting our graduation, which was in August. And this is around April. So I'm still waiting all the way to August, and I have no job, no money, nothing. So I would hawk my clothes, like the thrifted clothes, and then I'd come home with whatever little I have. So I think at the time my brother used to support me with rent money at that time still. So at least I had some bit of support. My mom was the one who was really like wanting me to move back home, but I was against that idea. Anyway, so I kept hawking my clothes, and then eventually I got a census job. I applied for that job and I got the job. So luckily we were called. Me and my best friend, we applied for it and we were shortlisted and we got the job. So we were working for like, was it 2 weeks or is it a week? A month. I can't remember, by the way. I cannot remember. That was in August. And remember, my graduation was also in August. So apparently I had to miss my graduation because we had to choose between work and graduating. And personally, I did not see the sense of doing away with that job for the sake of a graduation party which would only last a day. And on this other hand, the job will give me money which will help me in sorting out my bills and doing some other things for myself. So August came, we forewent the graduation party, and we stuck to the job. We did the job still in Moihoko because we applied for jobs within that area. So in September, luckily, one of my neighbors where we used to live, still in Moihoko, in that same building I told you, the single room I was living in, my neighbor came. We used to study with her in the same school peer, because that whole apartment had so many students from the same school. We were in the same campus, so it was more or less more of students in that apartment than outsiders. So one day after this census job was over, she came. It was a census. Yeah, after that job was over, she came over to my place because I used to live on the 4th floor, which also had hanging lights. So she knew where I lived, but we never used to be close. We never used to talk like that much. So she just passed by and she was like, hi. She was just passing by to say hi. And she was like, what do you do nowadays in terms of work? I was like, I don't have a job, by the way. I was really yearning to get one. And she told me, you know what? We have a vacancy where I work, so you can apply. And then we can see what comes out of that. And I was really happy. So I applied. And then after a month, I think, that is when I started working with them. So I worked with the company for quite some time, like 2 years and 8 months and something. So yeah, fast forward now to 2020, November. So this was in 2019, remember, August. So September, I applied for the job. October, got the job. So 2020, I'm still working in this company. In November, I got pregnant. November of 2020, I got pregnant. Mind you, I kept the pregnancy secret for a whole 9 months. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell my dad. No one. The only people who knew was my sister and my best friend and a few other friends, hapa na pale, but family members, no one knew, nothing. So I kept it secret for a very long time. And I remember in 2021, when I now gave birth on July the 31st, that is when I actually texted my mom and was like, Mom, I texted her on 1st of August now. I told her, Mom, I just gave birth yesterday. And she was so surprised. My mom was so surprised. Like, that is the time I knew I can actually keep a secret. Like, I kept it secret for a very long time. I didn't tell anyone. I felt like that moment for me was very personal, and I didn't want so much energy coming from all corners. Like, oh, is it the right thing? Maybe you rushed. I didn't want that kind of energy. So that is why I kept it to a very small circle who knew I was pregnant. And yeah, so fast forward to 2021, when I now gave birth and told my mom that I gave birth. I actually was nursing myself in the house all the time, like all that time. I didn't have much help. My best friend at the time, okay, not at the time, my best friend always, at that time, she sent someone she knew to help me with housework because I didn't have help in the house. So she sent a woman she used to know. We both used to know the woman, but she was closer with the woman than I was. So she sent her over. She helped me with laundry because I had laundry that had been pending for 3 months. I was pregnant, y'all, so I was not doing any work. So laundry was pending for a whole 3 months. So the lady came and helped me with the laundry. I think she came for like 2 days and then I was just done. I was like, because we had an issue. I was at home and I was on a maternity leave. Okay. So the money I was receiving as maternity salary was not enough to like pay her on a daily because she was demanding for so much money at the time. And I have a newborn baby. I have new responsibilities. Like life was beginning for me again. Like this was a whole new chapter for me. So I had to be smart in a way. Like I had to save money because, for the rainy days. Yeah, for the rainy days. So I had her on for like 2 days and then I just told her, enough is enough. So that was in August. So September, my brother called me, my big bro. He called me and he was like, I can move to his place for a while because since I'm living alone and I still have a newborn, like I should just go over to his place and bond with his wife, like she can also be helping me with the newborn sometimes. And yeah, so I went over to his place. I'm usually not a huge fan of staying over at people's places, by the way. I hate staying over at people's places. Even if I'm a relative, I hate. I hate. Like, I love being in my own space. So me, I went. I stayed there for a month. And what made me stay actually was the fact that out of respect for my brother, of course, and also because my two childhood friends, like where my brother where my brother lives next to his house is also a friend of his who lives there. So like his friend, we are family friends. We've known each other forever, like since childhood. Yeah, so that is the main reason why I also stayed for long because we were catching up. It had been a long time since we last saw each other, so it was a moment for us catching up. Yeah. So after the 1 month was over, I moved back to my place, which was in October. I moved back to my place because I was supposed to resume work on November of 2021. Okay, so that meant I had to come back home like a month prior so that I can plan myself in terms of having a nanny, because now since I'm going back to work, I have to find a nanny who I can work with so that I can bond with the child early enough, since November was not far away. So I went back home and luckily I had one nanny I had spotted. She was not a nanny, but when I spotted her, she was working as a shop attendant. But she was willing to work as a nanny for me because it entailed less work and more hours of free time for her and her children because she was also a mom. So fast forward, I moved back to my place in October and I had my first nanny. Not that one I'm talking about. There was another one I had gotten and she was terrible. I had her for 2 weeks. Was it 2 weeks or was it? No, a few days, like 3 days. And then I just chased her because I had had enough. I have a problem with addressing people. Like, even if you do something wrong to me, I usually have an issue with telling you you've wronged me. So when I felt like she was not the ideal nanny I wanted, it was really hard for me to like tell her, I can't work with you. So I had to cook a story, but it worked anyway. And so she left. So the second nanny who came is the one who I stayed with for the long term. So the one now I'm telling you about was a shop attendant and she did a pretty good job. She was perfect at her job. I loved how she bonded with my son. It was just magic. Like, they just bonded and I had peace of mind. The first 2 days were hectic. They were hella hectic because they were not bonding. My baby would cry the whole day until I come back from work. He even lost a couple of kgs during that time, but like the third day they were good to go and they bonded for good until when, of course, I had to let her go. So again, fast forward to when now November came and I had to report to work. So by this time I now had the nanny in place and me went back to work. I reported back to work. So I remember I had so much stress at that time. I had so much going on in my life at that time. So I took so many loans. Because my salary at the time was not enough. because now I have a nanny, I have a newborn, I have rent, like all the bills were looking at me. So it was really hard for me at the time. And I still had to make everything work because all the bills are looking up to me at the end of the day. So you see, there were even times when I had to leave the nanny without food. But I loved how understanding she was, because now since she lived like 5 minutes away from where I lived, she would carry her own food. That is what I loved. Like, she was really understanding. She was not the type to go around gossiping about my situation. Like, she was heaven sent, and she was very human. So November came, December came, Miles fell sick. I remember we were admitted in the hospital for like a week or two. I didn't want to put blames on anyone at the time, because okay, he was diagnosed with severe pneumonia at the time. He was only like 4 months old. And I remember I didn't report work for like 2 weeks. So I requested for those days off. Because I was in hospital. We were admitted in hospital. He was on oxygen for 5 days. It was so severe, but I was so strong. I thank God, because I feel, okay, God really makes you go through things you can handle, for sure. That you know, as a attest, I can attest, because he does what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Yeah. So during that time we were in hospital, my nanny used to come and see us. She used to come and bring me fruits. Like, she was so sweet. I wish I could, like, in future, I wish I can find someone just as perfect as she was, or nearly, or even better. Okay, better. Yeah, I'm praying for better. Yeah, so we were in hospital, and then she was always coming to see us. Eventually we were discharged and we went back home. She resumed work again, so that was now in 2022. Yeah, she resumed work. So 2022, she came in January, and then February, and also March, and then April, all hell broke loose. So at this time, now in 2022, I have already incurred so many debts, because now, like I told you, my salary was not enough. So I had to keep on using these loan apps and borrowing money every now and then. So I had incurred so much debt. If I say so much, I mean so much. Okay, for me, that was so much, because I'm not the type to incur debts. Yeah. So come April, I got fired. Like, to add insult to injury, I got fired after going through so much. Okay. So now I don't have a job. So eventually I now had to fire my nanny, because how am I supposed to pay her and I don't have a job? It's not sustainable. Like, I don't have enough money to accommodate all of us. So I had to, okay, she was not boarding kind of, she was a day bag. Yeah, she was a day bag, because she used to live near where I used to live. So now, since I had to lay her off, I had to figure out another plan, because at this point, honestly speaking, it was all too much. Now, at that time, I didn't have a mindset starting my own business. I didn't even, like, it didn't cross along those lines. At the time, I was only thinking about my child. Like, I don't have a job. What do I do? And I thought of applying for other jobs, but in all honesty, I felt like I was so done with employment at the time, and up until now, it has stuck with me. Like, it was a sign from God, because before I was even fired, I had that intuition that I don't want employment anymore, and for sure, it stuck with me. Like, I was sikuwa na bahatisha. It was the ideal nini that I felt inside of me, and I didn't want to hear anything about employment. So now that meant me being in the house and incurring even more debts. Okay, I always resisted going home, like coming home, because I knew, okay, I don't want to come and add my son as a burden to the family, because we are not that well off financially, and that's going to be an extra burden for my parents. Guy, Miles, God, that was going to be an extra burden for my parents, so I didn't want to be that person. Okay, so that was in April. May came, June came, and I was like, you know what, rent is now a problem. Rent is becoming a problem now, because the salary I had, I managed to pay for rent for those few, or not for a few, for like that month, that April month. And then now May, June, July, and the other coming months were going to be hell for me. So days passed by, and I figured the more I keep staying at that place where I was living, the more it's becoming harder for me, because I don't have rent, I don't have food. And I have a child with me, and I'm only making it worse for him. So I was slowly falling into depression at the time. By the way, I was literally falling into depression, and I didn't even know it, because there were days I would wake up and have some weird thoughts, and then I just brush them off, and then some days they are worse, and I kept brushing them off. Of course, I was not even seeking for help, because who even has the money to hire a therapist at the time? I didn't. Anyway, so June came, and on the 15th of June is when I decided, you know what? I think I'm going to move back home, because after I got fired, there's a company which approached me to work with them as their marketer. So the good thing with the company was I was only working remotely. I didn't have to like report to the office daily. So I would report in the office like once a month and just take content for the shop, for the page, and then that's it. So I have content worth a whole month, and that was really easy for me, because having a child, at least I'll be with him more, like I won't have to be in the office. Now that will have meant I'd have to like brought back the nanny, and the salary was not enough. The salary they were paying me was really little, so I had to work with what I had. Anyway, so I eventually got Wi-Fi installed, because now this work needed me to be online most of the time. Okay, since now I'm a digital marketer, it meant I had to be online more often. So bundles would not really work for me. Fast forward, I was now working with them. It signed a contract. It's now formal. We agreed on the salary they were to be paying me, and I worked with them for a while, actually, for a very long while. But now eventually I stopped working with them, because it was a problem. Every time it was time for them to remit salary, it will be a push and pull for like a whole week. Like they're supposed to pay on 10th, they'll pay on the 15th. It was always a struggle. Yeah, so fast forward to now back in June. When now on the 15th of June, that is when I decided, you know what, this money they've paid me, now this company, the one I was working with as a digital marketer, the money they paid me, they used to pay me 9,000, by the way, like 9,000 bob. So I decided that money, I'll put it aside, go home fast, because now I can't afford the rent where I was living, because rent in that place was 10,000. And I was like, I can't afford the rent. Okay, so the best I can do is move back home for a while and figure things out. So my plan was I would come back home, and then that 9,000, I'd use it for paying my movers, because I knew I needed someone to help me move, and also pay for the rangi, like the paint, because normally you have to pay for the paint when you move out of a house, for most houses normally nowadays. I don't know if it's still the same in most apartments, but it applied for that apartment. Like you had to pay money for the house to be repainted for the next tenant. Yeah, so I came back home on that 15th of June, and I really felt bad. Like I had really lost a lot of weight. I was just sad, depressed, tired with life. So I decided on the 30th of June is when I'll go and now move out with my things, like officially. So when I was back home, on that 15th of June, I talked to the landlord, and I asked like, what am I supposed to pay for when I'm moving out, because I'm planning to move out impromptu, because normally you're supposed to give a month's notice, but I'm only giving like a week or two notice. So I told them I'm moving out this same month, so tell me what I'm supposed to pay for and how much it will amount to, so that I can prepare myself. So they told me all the money that I need to pay. Now, unfortunately, I had left my documents in the house. So in August, I applied. That was in June, right? So before August, that same June, I had applied for a job for the elections as an enumerator. A polling clerk. I applied for a job as a polling clerk, and I got shortlisted. So they required like original documents, like your degree, your transcripts, and they were all in the house. So I had to go. So that same day I went for the interview. I presented my scanned documents which I had in my email, and they were like, no, we want the original documents. So I had to go back where I used to live that same night, and I found my house was already closed. Like I had closed, of course, but they had put in another padlock. I was so devastated. And then the caretaker at the time was not around. So I actually cried. I remember I cried that day. So I came back home, And the next morning, I woke up really early. So my mom called the landlady and she was like, please let her pick the documents. So I went because I had not paid rent for that month, by the way. That is why they were closing the house. If I hadn't mentioned, that's why they were closing the house. So my mom talked to them. They accepted. I went back that same morning. I woke up really early because I was supposed to represent the documents by 10 a.m. They gave me an allowance until 10 a.m. But they told me they'll give me up until 2 p.m. if I can't make it during the morning session. But I was really willing to do it in the morning hours so that I can get over and done with. So I went over to the place. They opened for me. I took my documents and then I took them to, because I had applied for the Nini in Kiambu. So I went all the way to Kiambu, submitted the documents, and then that was it. So I was eventually called for the job. I got the job, of course. But now, remember, I haven't moved out from where I used to live yet. So I had to move out fast. Because now the Ninis were happening in August, the elections. So I had to prepare myself to shift before then because I didn't want to have like a lot going on, So on June 30th is when I now moved back home. I'm sorry the story is all over the place, by the way. I'm trying to put everything in order, but if it seems like it's all over the place, please just bear with me. So I moved on 30th of June is when I went back. And now let me tell you that now the juicy part is when I was now going to shift officially, I didn't even have the money for the paint. Remember I told you when you're in that apartment, the rules were if you are shifting, you have to pay money for the paint, for the house to be repainted for the next tenant. So the amount was totaling to 5,800 and I didn't have that money. So I had already taken pictures of the couch I used to have and I was posting it on Facebook, Marketplace, I was looking for a buyer. Luckily, on the 29th of June, I got a buyer. So they promised to come on the 30th of June to check out the couch and whatever. So since I was shifting on that 30th, I got there and we met with them, and luckily they bought the seat and they even paid. They were really nice guys, by the way. They paid for it and then they went. So at least the money that they gave me is the one I paid to the landlady. And mind you, that morning walikuwa wamekataa kunifungulia mlango because they were like, I've not even sent the money yet. How do we trust that if you open the door for you to pick your things, you won't just go and then forget and then like not pay us the money? So I really had to beg them. I was even crying because now I didn't want these people to know I have been locked out of my house. But anyway, they didn't even shikanisha anything. So the caretaker came, opened the door. I talked to the caretaker because I told him I don't have the money, but these guys are buying the couch. So once they get the couch, I'm sending the money like right now. That's what I did. They opened the door for me. The guys were already there when I got there. So they came and saw the couch and then paid the money. And then I paid immediately. So now they left. I even gave them the bed I was using the time because it was already broken. But then the bed was already broken. Like those last few days before I moved out, I was really going through it. I was suffering mentally, physically, financially, emotionally. I was going through a lot, by the way. Hey, it was hell on earth for one person. Yeah, so they went and then I was left there. I called my shifter, or is it my mover? He came and helped me move. I got home around 7 p.m., 8 p.m. I had a lot of stuff. So we just stuffed them in one of the beds and where no one sleeps. So that is where they are up until today. But at least I recently decluttered. So most of the stuff is gone. I just have a few left. And yeah, so up until today, I still live with my mom. And I'm hoping that soon I'll like move out. Like I'm used to having my own space. I really miss having my own space. I thank God because she accepted me back, but I really wish I could have like my own space finally where I can be me myself again, because I feel like sometimes I have to put a personality which is not mine. Like sometimes when you live alone, you just want to wake up, be busy, do your own stuff, work. But now when I'm at home, I can't really do that because sometimes we have a shared room with my siblings. Sometimes I want to take photos for the shop. Someone wants to do something else in the room. when I want to go to my mom's room, my mom wants to come to the room and like I don't have freedom for myself. But I really thank God because He has passed me through that phase, and now I'm hoping for the better. Okay, yeah. So here we are now, an year later, and still pushing. I really just thank God because I know He's taking me to better places. Yeah. So that's it for the story time, guys. I really hope this encourages someone that it gets better with time. I still have the debts, by the way. I still have the debts. I've not settled all of them, just a few. Because even the money I got after I got paid for the polling clerk, whatever, it already got like ililipa deni. So like I still have debts. I mean I'm paying up until today. It's a lot, man. It's a lot, but yeah, that's why I moved back home. I think you now have the full story. You now have the full story. You now have the full story. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching up until this point. Feel encouraged. Just give yourself hope, and there are brighter days ahead. So yeah. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.